On the 9th of April, the aged British battlecruiser the Renown found the modern German battlecruisers Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, and although outnumbered, attacked. The German ships withdrew, with the Gneisenau badly damaged. The Germans offer Norway and Denmark a chance to surrender and accept German protection. King Haakon the Seventh of Norway refuses. King Christian the Tenth of Denmark, to his eternal shame, accepts. In Denmark, there's little fighting, and it's soon occupied after a power drop and 5 separate naval landings. German plan had been swift, precise, and ruthless, everything the British and French plan had not. Norway's government orders the army to mobilise, but no one actually knows how to do it. They've never done it before. Unknown to the Norwegians, German merchant ships already in Oslo were actually stock full of ammunition and supplies waiting for German troops to use. They'd sailed in whilst at peace and just waited there till German troops could pick them up. Stavanger port and the Sola airfield were captured by the first contested paradrop of the war. Norwegian forces resist the Germans, however. The new German cruiser, the Blucher, one of only 5 in their fleet, is sunk by a Norwegian shore battery near Oslo as the Norwegians bitterly contest this invasion of their country. A second, the Lutzow, is heavily damaged. Now, Oslo, the capital, falls, but the resistance by the shore batteries and the air force and the coastal defence ships allowed King Haakon and the government to escape inland and taking with them the country's gold reserves, keeping them out of the hands of the Germans. That day, German mountain troops managed to evade the Royal Navy and land at Trondheim, Bergen and Kristiansand. The Royal Navy had believed that the Kriegsmarine were attempting a mass breakout into the Atlantic to attack British convoys, and so had failed to stop them reaching Norway. On the 10th of April, British and German destroyers clashed at Narvik. One British destroyer was sunk, but the Germans lost 2 destroyers sunk and a supply ship that was carrying all the German mountain division's heavy guns. On the 11th of April, the French asked the Belgians permission to enter Belgium, but the Belgian government refused. The British and French decided that if the Germans attacked the Netherlands, they would advance into Belgium anyway, invited or not. The British battleship the Warspite sank 5 German destroyers at Narvik. The German U-boats were really struggling around Norway. 5 German torpedoes had hit the Warspite, but none of them had exploded. The U-boats also scored 14 hits on British cruisers and 10 on troop transports, and another 10 on destroyers, all without their torpedoes exploding, as the Germans were using some highly advanced technology. They were using magnetic detonators that would have worked superbly off the coast of Germany or indeed Britain, but didn't work that close to the Arctic Circle because of the differences in the magnetic fields. It could have been a disaster for the Royal Navy, but instead the Royal Navy had gained a decisive edge. On the 12th of April, the French were still struggling to actually get involved in the Norway campaign. Renaud had actually had to look up the Norwegian ports in an atlas. Gamelin had done nothing to prepare the troops that had been promised, and he offered Daladier his resignation, who refused it. He offered it to Daladier, not Renaud, because Gamelin knew that Renaud would have accepted his resignation for this failure. The British were told to reload the troops they'd unloaded and to send an expeditionary force to go and fight on behalf of the Norwegians. There was absolute chaos. Some troops, they never found a lot of the luggage that they unloaded from the Rosyth cruisers. Nobody really knows even now where they'd gone. But as they rushed to try and reload these troops, some troops had no snowshoes, some were so heavily laden with kit that they couldn't walk. Most had no mountain training. The kit bags had got lost. They have no heavy guns or vehicles loaded, as it was wrongly assumed that Norway would supply them. Norway had men, but it had no heavy guns and it had no vehicles, but it was believed we could borrow theirs that they didn't have. The British troops sent to Narvik had maps for Trondheim. The troops sent to Trondheim had maps for Andelsnes. The British sent bombers, but few fighters to support them, meaning that the Germans soon gained control of the skies. The British wanted to concentrate on Narvik, but the French pressurised us to send troops to Trondheim and Andelsnes as well. On the 11th to the 14th of April, the RAF began to mine the Danish Straits from the air, but it was too late. The British troops en route to Trondheim suffered a further disaster when the supply ship, the Cedar Bank, carrying all their heavy equipment, was sunk by a U-boat. They arrived with nothing but their rifles and light machine guns on the 22nd of April. The 148th Brigade arrived at Anderlasnes in the southern pocket with no artillery, no air support, no tanks, and short on ammunition. They joined some badly equipped Norwegian troops with some pre-1900 artillery, but these two forces showed great grit, attacking and then overrunning German paratroop forces, but it was already too little, too late. The Norwegian army had tried to concentrate at Lillehammer, the largest town in central Norway, but it was soon destroyed by air attacks before being crushed by German armour. French troops finally arrived at Namsos, but the fighting in Norway was all but over. On the 30th of April, central and southern Norway was evacuated. Narvik was in German hands, but was besieged by British troops. On the 6th of May, these British besieging troops were to be joined by Polish and French troops too. Reynard, meanwhile, had staked his reputation on the Norway campaign. He was furious at the British withdrawal and accused the British of lacking energy. The British were furious with the French. The French, they said, have done absolutely nil. It is our ships and our aircraft that are shot down, said Cadogan, a civil servant. Now Daladier, on the other hand, said, "We should ask the British what they want to do. They pushed for this war, and they wriggle out of it as soon as it becomes a matter of results which might directly affect them," a criticism that could easily have been levelled at the French government itself. On the 7th of May, Chamberlain suffered a fatal humiliation in the House of Commons. His position was now untenable after the two-day Norwegian debate. Leo Amery quoted Cromwell, "You have sat here for too long for any good you are doing. Depart, I say, and let us have done with you. In the name of God, go." Chamberlain's war was over. But the day after the Norway debate, the 10th of May, the German invasion of France and the Low Countries had begun. With their ammunition stocks low, Germany had a chance for one offensive to win the war in the West. And in future months we'll look at whether the gamble that they will launch in the Battle of France will pay off. Keep safe. Have a happy Easter.